Hi. This is my first time going live on TikTok. Um, if anybody can hear me, let me know that you can hear me. Yeah, I'm going to be reading some stories tonight from the Brothers Grimm. Let me see if I can adjust this camera a little bit better. Hopefully, okay. There, that's not too bad, right? Okay. I hope that you guys can hear me okay. I'm also gonna be streaming on Facebook Live. Let me just get all my things situated here. I have multiple cameras going, so trying to figure that one out. Okay. I think this is gonna do it. All right. Ooh, I fell over. Maybe like that. Is that better? Okay. So, let's see. By the way, hi, my name is Jackie, and I am your friendly neighborhood vampire. I also do some professional voice work. I've done a few audiobooks. And I just really like reading. Also, again, this is my first time going live, so you'll have to give me a little grace in this. So let's see. I was planning on just starting from the beginning of Grimm's Fairy Tales and just reading through. I'm hoping to make this maybe, at least a weekly or a couple times a week sort of event. I think that would be a lot of fun. So also, I'm doing a Facebook live stream. So I'm going to start that right now. Boop doop. All right. So I think it's going. Bear with me. There we go. Hello, Facebook, and hello, TikTok. I forgot the name of the app for a moment there. So this is Vampire Story Time. I'm actually a little bit early, so we're gonna give it a few minutes because I made a Facebook live event that was supposed to start at 8 o'clock my time. I'm in Missouri. I don't know where you guys are. Frame rate is too low. What does that even mean? I don't know what that means. Okay. Anyway, where was I? Yes. So I made a Facebook Live event that's supposed to start at 8 o'clock in Missouri time. I don't know what that time zone is called. That's not Central Time, I don't think. But in any case, we've got a few minutes. So I'm just going to kind of ramble on a little bit. I'm here with my dogs. So this is Finn right here. And then there's another dog just out of frame. That's Crowley. They're very sleepy boys. It's their bedtime, so they're going to be joining us for these bedtime stories. I also want to share with you my copy of Grimm. It is a very fancy one. And look, it's gold. It's got the gold edging. How great is that? It's pretty fun, isn't it? And it's got all these great little illustrations in it as well. So let me see if I can find some of the illustration plates. Oh, here's one. Oh, that's neat. Check that out. Can you see that? It's got a bunch of fun stuff going on. I can't see on Facebook if anybody is tuning in. I'm using the desktop thingy widget here, and I don't know how that works. Yeah. So anyway, I love the Grimm fairy tales because they are, as the name would suggest, quite grim. You know, a lot of them are from the old German storytelling traditions, which are, you know, grim people, you know, not really fuzzy cuddly kind of fairy tales. Here's another really fun illustration in here. I don't know if you can see that. So let's see what time is it. All right, got 5 more minutes. Does anybody care for 5 more minutes? They hang tight. You know what though, I think we can probably just start reading. So the first story that we have today, like I said, I'm just gonna start from the beginning. I was looking through earlier and you know, I just couldn't quite decide on where to start. So I figured we'd start from the beginning. This one actually has a great little illustration down at the bottom of the page. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Blue. Yeah, that's a fun one there. All right, here we go. The Frog King. In old times, when wishing still helped one there... Sorry, I'm a little nervous. In old times, when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful, but the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which has seen so much, was astonished whenever it shone on her face. Close by the king's castle lay a great dark forest, and under an old lime tree in the forest was a well, and when the day was very warm, the king's child went out into the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain. And when she was dull, she took a golden ball and threw it up, up high, and caught it, and this ball was her favorite plaything. Now it so happened that one occasion the princess's golden ball did not fall into the little hand which she was holding up for it, but on the ground beyond, and rolled straight into the water. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes, but it vanished, and the well was deep, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. On this she began to cry, and cried louder and louder, and could not be comforted. And as she thus lamented, someone said to her, "What ails thee, king's daughter? Thou weepest so that even a stone would show pity." She looked round to the side from where the voice came, and saw a frog stretching forth its thick, ugly head from the water. "Ah, old water splasher, is it thou?" said she. "I am weeping for my golden ball, which has fallen into the well." "Be quiet and do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help thee. But what wilt thou give me if I bring thy plaything again?" "Whatever thou wilt have, dear frog," said she. "My clothes, my pearls, my jewels, and even the golden crown which I am wearing." She really likes that ball. The frog answered, I do not care for thy clothes, thy pearls and thy jewels, or thy golden crown. But if thou wilt love me, and let me be thy companion and playfellow, and sit by thee at thy little table, and eat off thy little golden plate, and drink out of thy little cup, and sleep in thy little bed. If thou wilt promise me this, I will go down below, and bring thee thy golden ball up again. Oh, yes, said she, I promise thee all thou wish, if thou wilt but bring me my ball back again. She, however, thought, how the silly frog does talk. He lives in the water with all the other frogs and croaks, and can be no companion to any human being. But the frog, when he had received this promise, put his head into the water and sank down, and in a short while came swimming up again with the ball in his mouth, and threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything once more, and picked it up and ran away with it. Wait, wait, said the frog. Take me with thee. I can't run as thou canst. But what did it avail him to scream his croak after her as loudly as he could? She did not listen to it, but ran home and soon forgot the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his well again. The next day, when she had seated herself at table with the king and all the courtiers, and was eating from her little golden plate, something came creeping splish, splash, up the marble staircase, and when it had got to the top, it knocked at the door and cried, Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. She ran to see who was outside, but when she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it. Then she slammed the door to in great haste, sat down to dinner again, and was quite frightened. The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently, and said, My child, what art thou so afraid of? Is there perchance a giant outside who wants to carry thee away? Oh, no, she replied. It is no giant, but a disgusting frog. What does a frog want with thee? Ah, dear father, yesterday as I was in the forest sitting by the well playing, my golden ball fell into the water, and because I cried, so the frog brought it out again for me. And because he insisted so on it, I promised him he should be my companion, but I never thought he would be able to come out of his water, and now he is outside there and wants to come in to me. In the meantime, it knocked a second time and cried, Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Dost thou not know what thou said to me yesterday by the cold waters of the fountain? Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Then said the king, That which thou hast promised must thou perform. Go and let him in. She went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her, step by step, to her chair. There he sat and cried, Lift me up beside thee. She delayed, until at last the king commanded her to do it. When the frog was once on the chair, he wanted to be on the table. And when he was on the table, he said, Now push thy little golden plate nearer to me, that we may eat together. She did this, but it was easy to see that she did not do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but almost every mouthful she took choked her. At length he said, I have eaten, and I am satisfied. Now I am tired. Carry me into thy little room, and make thy little silken bed ready, and we will both lie down and go to sleep." The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog, which she did not like to touch, and which was now to sleep in her pretty, clean little bed. But the king grew angry and said, "He who helped thee when thou wert in trouble ought not afterwards to be despised by thee." So she took hold of the frog with 2 fingers and carried him upstairs and put him in a corner. But when she was in bed, he crept to her and said, "I am tired. I want to sleep as well as thou. Lift me up, or I will tell thy father." Then she was terribly angry, and took him up and threw him with all her might against the wall. "Now thou wilt be quiet, odious frog," said she. But when he fell down, he was no frog, but a king's son with beautiful, kind eyes. He, by her father's will, was now her dear companion and husband. And when he told her how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together into his kingdom, then they went to sleep. And next morning, when the sun awoke them, a carriage came driving up with 8 white horses, which had white ostrich feathers on their heads, and were harnessed with golden chains, and behind stood the young king's servant, Faithful Henry. Oh, and here's a picture of her carrying the little frog with the 2 fingers, because, ew, it's that slimy. She's a bit of a see you next Tuesday, if you ask me. Personally, I like frogs. I would be more disappointed when it turned into a prince, but that's me. Faithful Henry had been so unhappy when his master was changed into a frog that he had caused 3 iron bands to be laid round his heart, lest it should burst with grief and sadness. The carriage was to conduct the young king into his kingdom. Faithful Henry helped them both in, and placed himself behind again, and was full of joy because of this deliverance. I wonder how he found out so quickly that the prince was back to a human. It's like some kind of radar love between the prince and Henry there. Maybe a little too faithful of a companion. I don't know. Perhaps some kind of lavender arrangement. Any hooser. Boop, 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 boop. And when they had driven a part of the way, the king's son heard a cracking behind him, as if something had broken. So he turned round and cried, "Henry, the carriage is breaking." "No, master, it is not the carriage. It is a band from my heart, which was put there in my great pain when you were a frog and imprisoned in the well." Again and once again they were on their way. Something cracked, and each time the king's son thought the carriage was breaking, but it was only the bands which were springing from the heart of the faithful Henry, because his master was set free and happy. And somehow that's the end. I think they kind of buried the lead with the whole Faithful Henry and the bands around his heart. I would have liked to know more about that personally. Like, inside his chest? Or is he wearing some kind of like band around him? And I mean, that is an extremely faithful servant. I mean, good for him. That's fantastic. So let's see. Are there, now that we're done with the first one, I want to see. Oh, hi, Cazetta. Hey, Kevin. Hey, Boo. Let's see. No new comments. Is there anybody tuned in here? Okay. All right. I hope you guys are enjoying so far. Hi, Spike. Do I still do tattoos? I don't, actually. I moved into the woods so that I could paint and apparently read stories on the internet. But I still do art, and I do art commissions. At some point, I probably will do guest spots somewhere. I don't have any plans right this minute, but at some point, probably, yeah. So stay tuned. Oh, there are a few comments on the TikToks. Okay. Anyway, so we're on to the next one because I want to fill an hour. I think that's reasonable. An hour for bedtime stories. I think that's good. So the next one is called The Giant and the Tailor. A certain tailor, who was great at boasting but ill at doing, took it into his head to go abroad for a while and look about the world. As soon as he could manage it, he left his workshop and wandered on his way over hill and dale, sometimes hither, sometimes thither, but ever on and on. Once, when he was out, he perceived in the blue distance a steep hill, and behind it a tower reaching into the clouds, which rose up out of a wild, dark forest. "Thunder and lightning!" cried the tailor. "What is that?" And as he was strongly goaded by curiosity, he went boldly toward it. But what made the tailor open his eyes and mouth when he came near it was to see that the tower had legs and leapt in one bound over the steep hill. It was now standing as an all-powerful giant before him.
"What dost thou want here, thou tiny fly's leg?"
cried the giant, with a voice as if it were thundering on every side. The tailor whimpered, I want just to look about and see if I can earn a bit of bread for myself in this forest."
"If that is what thou art after," said the giant, "thou must have a place with me."
"If it must be, why not? What wages shall I receive?"
Thou shalt hear what wages thou shalt have. Every year, 365 days, and when it is leap year, one more into the bargain. Does that suit thee?"
"All right," replied the tailor, and thought in his own mind, "A man must cut his coat according to his cloth. I will try to get away as fast as I can." Sorry, my accent's a little all over the place. I'm just having a little fun. On this, the giant said to him,
"Go, little ragamuffin, and fetch me a jug of water."
"Had I not better bring the well itself at once, and the spring too?" asked the boaster, and went with the pitcher to the water.
"What? The well and the spring too?"
growled the giant in his beard, for he was rather clownish and stupid, and began to be afraid.
"That knave is no fool. He has a wizard in his body." "Be on thy guard, old Hans. This is no serving man for thee."
When the tailor had brought the water, the giant bade him go into the forest and cut a couple of blocks of wood and bring them back. "Why not the whole forest at once, with one stroke? The whole forest, young and old, with all that is there, both rough and smooth?" asked the little tailor, and went to cut the wood.
What? The whole forest, young and old, with all that is there, both rough and smooth, and the well and the spring too?
Growled the credulous giant in his beard, and was still more terrified.
The knave can do much more than bake apples, and has a wizard in his body. Be on thy guard, old Hans. This is no serving man for thee.
When the tailor had brought the wood, the giant commanded him to shoot 2 or 3 wild boars for supper. It's a lot of boars. Yeesh. Why not rather 1,000 at one shot, and bring them all here? Inquired the ostentatious tailor.
What?
Cried the timid giant in great terror.
Let well alone tonight, and lie down to rest.
The giant was so terribly alarmed that he could not close an eye all night long for thinking what would be the best way to get rid of this accursed sorcerer of a servant. Time brings counsel. Next morning the giant and the tailor went to a marsh, round which stood a number of willow trees. Then said the giant,
Hark thee, tailor, seat thyself.
Sorry about that.
Hark thee, tailor, seat thyself on one of the willow branches. I long of all things to see if thou art big enough to bend it down.
All at once the tailor was sitting on it, holding his breath, and making himself so heavy that the bough bent down. When, however, he was compelled to draw a breath, it hurried him, for unfortunately he had not put his goose in his pocket, so high into the air that he never was seen again, and this to the great delight of the giant. If the tailor had not fallen down again, he must be hovering about in the air. He forgot to put a goose in his pocket. Oh, I love these old fairy tales. I mean, like, it doesn't make any sense. But, you know, it's okay. It's okay to not make any sense. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's oldie-timey, so it's fine. But, I mean, like, is goose, does it, like, mean something? Is it, like a, I don't know, like a billet of lead or something that, like, people used to carry around? Maybe that's the thing. Or did they mean an actual goose? Did people used to carry geese in their pockets in oldie times? I mean, that doesn't sound like a bad thing, but, like, geese are really big. Probably not a great idea to analyze these too much, but that's okay. We can have fun with it. So the next one, The Little Peasant. There was a certain village wherein no one lived but really rich peasants, and just one poor one, whom they called the Little Peasant. Oh, that sounds terrible. He had not even so much as a cow, and still less money to buy one, and yet he and his wife did so wish to have one. One day he said to her, Hark, I have a good thought. There is our gossip of the carpenter. He shall make us a wooden calf, and paint it brown, so that it look like any other, and in time it will certainly get big and be a cow. I don't think that's how that works, but you know. The woman also liked the idea, and their gossip, the carpenter, cut and planed the calf, and painted it as it ought to be, and made it with its head hanging down as if it were eating. I'm gonna readjust and get a little bit more comfy here. Excuse me, can I have this? There was a dog sitting on the pillow. Okay. Do you want to come up, bud? Come on, you can come back up. Okay. Here's a little doggy there. Hi, Crowley. Okay. Also, in case anybody's wondering, I know you can't really see it TikTok, but Facebook can see. I have my TV on. It's Chud. I thought that would be fun to play in the background. Chud. You know, it's an oldie, but it's a goodie. The cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. Yeah. Okay. Let's see, where were we? Boop-a-doop-a-doop. The next morning, when the cows were being driven out, the little peasant called the cowherd in and said, "Look, I have a little calf there, but it is still too small and still to be carried." The cowherd said, "All right," and took it in his arms and carried it to the pasture and set it among the grass. The little calf always remained standing like one which was eating, and the cowherd said, "It will soon run alone. Just look how it eats already." At night, when he was going to drive the herd home again, he said to the calf, "If thou canst stand there and eat thy fill, thou canst also go onto thy 4 legs. I don't care to drag thee home again in my arms." But the little peasant stood at his door and waited for his little calf. And when the cowherd drove the cows through the village, the calf was missing. He inquired where it was. The cowherd answered, "It is still standing out there eating. It would not stop and come with us." But the little peasant said, "Oh, but I must have my beast back again." Then they went back to the meadow together. But someone had stolen the calf, and it was gone. The cowherd said, "It must have run away." The peasant, however, said, "Don't tell me that," and led the cowherd before the mayor, who, for his carelessness, condemned him to give the peasant a cow for the calf which had run away. And now the little peasant and his wife had the cow for which they had so long wished, and they were heartily glad. But they had no food for it, and could give it nothing to eat. So soon it had to be killed. They salted the flesh, and the peasant went into the town and wanted to sell the skin there, so that he might buy a new calf with the proceeds. But he couldn't feed that one. It's not very financially smart. Oh well. I lost my place. Also, can you guys still hear me okay? I'm just gonna go down here. Okay. Well, I'm glad everybody can hear me okay. When I speak in like just a normal speaking voice, can you hear me okay? When I'm not like emoting, is it still work okay? I hope. Any hoosers. Now let's see. Hopefully, I got a couple people watching on TikTok. Hi, TikTok. The internet could be better. Yeah, is it lagging a little bit? Is the video coming through okay? Or is it just like not great video quality? 'Cause unfortunately, I'm downstairs in my house and the router is upstairs. So I'm probably farther away from my router than I should be. So maybe next time. I just wanted to be down here with my doggies so I could read them a bedtime story. Leo. I see you on the TikToks. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to this. Our financially irresponsible peasant who cannot feed a calf but still wants another one. On the way he passed by a mill, and there sat a raven with broken wings, and out of pity he took him and wrapped him in the skin. As, however, the weather grew so bad, and there was a storm of rain and wind, he could go no farther, and turned back to the mill and begged for shelter. The miller's wife was alone in the house, and said to the peasant, "Lay thyself on the straw there," and gave him a slice of bread with cheese on it. The peasant ate it, and lay down with his skin beside him, and the woman thought, "He is tired and has gone to sleep." In the meantime came the parson. The miller's wife received him as well, and said, "My husband is out, so we will have a feast." forth, and a priest was brought who was to say a mass for his soul. The others were all obliged to retire to a distance, and when the peasant looked at the priest, he recognized the man who had been with the miller's wife. He said to him, "I set you free from the cupboard. Set me free from the barrel." At this same moment came, with a flock of sheep, the very shepherd who, as the peasant knew, had long been wishing to be mayor. So he cried with all his might, "No, I will not do it. If the whole world insists on it, I will not do it." The shepherd, hearing that, came up to him and asked, "What art thou about? What is it that thou wilt not do?" The peasant said, They want to make me mayor. If I will put myself in the barrel, but I will not do it," the shepherd said. "If nothing more than that is needful to be the mayor, I would get into the barrel at once," the peasant said. Then the peasant said, "If thou wilt get in, thou wilt be mayor." The shepherd was willing and got in, and the peasant shut the top down on him, and then he took the shepherd's flock for himself and drove it away. The parson went to the crowd and declared that the mass had been said. Then they came and rolled the barrel towards the water. When the barrel began to roll, the shepherd cried, "I am quite willing to be mayor." They believed no otherwise than that it was the peasant who was saying this, and answered, "That is what we intend, but first thou shalt look about thee a little down below there." And they rolled the barrel down into the water. So there's an illustration. Nice little illustration. Yeah. There, reading the comments on Facebook. It's pretty cute. Oh, hi, Sam. I see you. Oh, yeah. Yes, Leo, that is absolutely how the boomers bought their homes. Those fuckers. If only it was that easy these days. Boop, boop, boop. After the peasants went home, and as they were entering the village, the small peasant also came quietly in, driving a flock of sheep, and looking quite contented. Then the peasants were astonished, and said, "Peasant, from whence hast thou come? Hast thou come out of the water?" "Yes, truly," replied the peasant. "I sank deep, deep down, until at last I got to the bottom. I pushed the bottom out of the barrel and crept out, and there were plenty of meadows pretty meadows on which a number of lambs were feeding, and from thence I brought this flock away with me." Said the peasants, "Are there any more there?" "Oh, yes," said he, "more than I could do anything with." Then the peasants made up their minds that they too would fetch some sheep for themselves, a flock apiece, but the mayor said, "I come first." So they went to the water together, and just then there were some of the small fleecy clouds in the blue sky, which are called little lambs, and they were reflected in the water, whereupon the peasants cried, "We already see the sheep down below." The mayor pressed forward and said, "I will go down first, and look about me, and if things promise well, I'll call you." So he jumped in. Splash went the water. He made a sound as if he were calling them, and the whole crowd plunged in after him as one man. Then the entire village was dead, and the small peasant, as sole heir, became a rich man. Well, it seems like a fair amount of these Grimm's fairy tales end with, "and then everyone died." Yeah. Hooray. It's good. It's fine. It's all fine. All right. Ba-doo. I do take bits of string, Leo. I absolutely do. I've got like a whole drawer of it in my office, actually. Okay. So the next one is called the Golden Key. So it looks like I've got a couple of very short ones here that I'm going to do because I said I was going to do an hour and I'm going to try to do an hour. So we'll keep on keeping on. Keep this ridiculous fairy tale train rolling. Yeah. Woo! You can see how enthusiastic Finn is. He's super excited. No, you give me that paw. Okay. The Golden Key. In the wintertime, when deep snow lay on the ground, a poor boy was forced to go out on a sledge to fetch wood. When he had gathered it together and packed it, he wished, as he was so frozen with cold, not to go home at once, but to light a fire and warm himself a little. So he scraped away the snow, and as he was thus clearing the ground, he found a tiny golden key. Hereupon he thought that where the key was, the lock must be also, and dug in the ground and found an iron chest. If the key does but fit, thought he, no doubt there are precious things in that little box. He searched, but no keyhole was there. At last he discovered one, but so small that it was hardly visible. He tried it, and the key fit exactly. Then he turned it once round, and now we must wait until he has quite unlocked it and opened the lid, and then we shall learn what wonderful things were laying in that box. And that's the actual end of that story. That's just... I don't know why that's in an actual fairy tale book. 'Cause that's not a story. That's just the first paragraph of a story. A fragment. It's not. Sorry guys, that's a little disappointing. It's kind of, reading Grimm's fairy tales, like from the beginning, it's kind of like reading the Bible from the beginning, like as though it's a story. There's going to be a lot of words that don't make a lot of sense. The grammar is super weird. And, stories that just don't make any goddamn... I know! What's in the box? I don't know. But for the sake of closure, we could just say, let's see. And as he lifted the lid, a loud wailing came from the trees. It grew in shape and sound, a noise to be a palpable thing, a noise that encompassed him like a great black cloak, and a shape like demon wings filled the sky. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Someone's inviting me to go live together. I don't even know what that means. I mean, how do you go? I don't know. I'm doing a thing. Maybe another time. Or maybe the box was full of forest porn. If you're middle-aged like me, then you know that any boxes you find in the woods probably just have porn mags in them. Or tapes, VHSs. It's full of VHSs with naked people in them. That's the only thing that you find in boxes in the woods. That's just facts, guys. Although oldie timey, yeah, oldie timey box in the woods, that might just be like etchings. Maybe it's like just etchings of boobs. That would be fun. Oh yeah. We'll say maybe it's etchings of boobs with like some dead piddle bugs, little piddle bugs in there because it was in the ground. All right. So we've got a couple more shorties here. Sharing joy and sorrow. There once was a tailor. A lot of tailors. Yeah, a lot of tailors. Yes, vintage 80s erotica from the woods was absolutely the best. I mean, I think that's how most of us of a certain age learned about the birds and the bees. Oh, forest porn, how I miss thee. These are the things that we lose with the digital age, It's not the same. All right. There once was a tailor who was a quarrelsome fellow, and his wife, who was good, industrious, and pious, never could please him. Whatever she did, he was not satisfied, but grumbled and scolded, and knocked her about and beat her. As the authorities at last heard of it, they had summoned him and put him in prison in order to make him better, because that's how that works. He was kept for a while on bread and water, and then set free again. He was forced, however, to promise not to beat his wife any more, but to live with her in peace, and share joy and sorrow with her as married people ought to. All went on well for a time, but then he fell into his old ways, and was surely as quarrelsome. And because he dared not beat her, he would seize her by the hair and tear it out. The woman escaped from him and sprang out into the yard, but he ran after her with his yard measure and scissors. He chased her about and threw the yard measure and scissors at her, and whatever else came his way. When he hit her, he laughed, and when he missed her, he stormed and swore. This went on so long that the neighbors came to the wife's assistance. About time. Jeez. The tailor was again summoned before the magistrates, and reminded of his promise. "Dear gentlemen," said he, "I have kept my word. I have not beaten her, but have shared joy and sorrow with her." "How can that be," said the judge, "when she continually brings us such heavy complaints against you?" "I have not beaten her, but just because she looked so strange, I wanted to comb her hair with my hand. She, however, got away from me, and left me quite spitefully. Then I hurried after her, and in order to bring her back to her duty, I threw at her as a well-meant admonition whatever came readily to hand. I have shared joy and sorrow with her also, for whenever I hit her, I was full of joy, and she of sorrow, and if I missed her, she was joyful, and I sorry." The judges were not satisfied with this answer, and gave him the reward he deserved. That's the end of the story. So maybe his head was in the box. That would be cool. That'd be a fun little tie-in, Well, I love, the metaverse of Grimm's fairy tales, It's all to get. That one was not fun. I hope people don't read that one to kids. There's nothing really fairy tale about it. It's just sort of sad. Yeah, that one was a little real. I mean, they could have at least thrown like, I don't know, fairy or an orc or like some kind of magic critter in there. Okay. and grab some water. Yeah, in that day and age, they probably would have just given him a bigger stick. It's kind of surprising, actually, that he would get. I mean, it must have been very severe for him to get brought in front of the magistrate. Um, I don't know what you would have to do, like how bad it would have to be for that. It was really heavy. It was super heavy. It's not a fairy tale. I don't know what. I mean, you expect Grimm from Grimm's fairy tales, but that one, it's not even like fantasy Grimm. That's just like real ass life Grimm. I guess the only thing fantasy was that he actually did go to jail. That's it. That's the fantasy. The fairy tale part. She absolutely should have turned to witchcraft. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, if you live in fairy tale land, you should absolutely hex your abuser. I think that's okay. That doesn't fall under the, whatever that, I'm tired, I can't think of that, like the threefold law. Yeah, I think if you hex in bad folks, it does not fall under the threefold law. All right, so the next little one is called the nail. A merchant had done good business at the fair. He had sold his wares and lined his money bags with gold and silver. Then he wanted to travel homewards and be in his own house before nightfall. So he packed his trunk with the money on his horse and rode away. At noon he rested in a town, and when he wanted to go further, the stable boy brought out his horse and said, "A nail is wanting, sir, in the shoe of its left hind foot." "Let it be wanting," answered the merchant. "The shoe will certainly stay on for the 6 miles I have still to go. I'm in a hurry." In the afternoon, when he once more alighted and had his horse fed, the stable boy went into the room to him and said, "Sir, a shoe is missing from your horse's left hind foot. Shall I take him to the blacksmith?" "Let it still be wanting," answered the man. "The horse can very well hold out for a couple more miles which remain. I am in haste." He rode forth, but before long the horse began to limp. It had not limped long before it began to stumble, and it had not stumbled long before it fell down and broke its leg. The merchant was forced to leave the horse where it was, unbuckle the trunk and take it on his back, and go home on foot. And there he did not arrive until quite late at night. "And that unlucky nail," he said to himself, "has caused all this disaster. Hasten slowly." I mean, it's not... That's the end. It's another one that's just sort of like a weird, short... It was not an unlucky nail. There was no luck about it, I don't think. What is it? It's like a stitch in time saves 9. Like, get your oil changed regularly or your car is going to not run properly. So let's see. The next one is Tom Thumb, which is a pretty decently long one. I'm not going to read that tonight, but I think maybe tomorrow night. Would anybody tune in if I did this again tomorrow night? Same bat place, same bat time. I think this is kind of fun, and we'll do Tom Thumb tomorrow. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. Let's see. All right, so that's what? Well, I'm glad that I could help you through your paperwork at work. So yeah, we'll do this again tomorrow night. I think this was a lot of fun, and I'll sit closer to the router tomorrow night, so hopefully it won't have any lag. So good night, y'all. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. There we go. Hold on, I have to turn this. Oh yeah, there's dogs. There's McCrowley Bow. He's a very sleepy boy.